Cashing in on weed. Canada legalizes recreational marijuana use, hoping to rake in billions. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Keneal Gale. Thanks so much for joining us this week. On Wednesday, Canada became the first G7 country to legalize recreational marijuana use. It was a promise made by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau during the election campaign. We'll have more on that in a bit, but right now here are some of the top news stories from the BATV News Desk. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett has ordered a security audit of all hotels and local attractions. Sashana Small tells us more.
In September, it was reported that 2 women were allegedly raped at gunpoint at the Ria Hotel by the hotel's entertainment coordinator, Demar Scott. Further investigations revealed that Mr. Scott was being sought by the Manchester Police for several rapes in that parish. This brought the Rio's hiring protocol into the spotlight, with the Tourism Ministry promising to implement measures to ensure that a similar incident does not happen again. The ministry says its first step will be to conduct a security audit across the sector. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says the audit is critical.
The critical need at this time for such an audit is a result of the strategic review that we're taking of the regulatory and other compliance processes to ensure that the industry remains safe, secure, and seamless.
Minister Bartlett says as part of their licensing agreement, hotels and attractions need to be secure. He says the audit will review compliance levels, and if breaches are found, very strong measures will be taken against the offending properties.
A very critical part of the licensing arrangements for hotels and attraction is a strong security component and an adherence to certain security protocols. The audit then will review those protocols too and will give a sense of compliance levels, and strong measures will follow to ensure that the industry remains in the clear insofar as any breaches of these requirements and regulations are concerned.
Jamaica's latest all-inclusive hotel opened on Thursday in Oyster Bay, Trelawney. The hotel, valued at some $110 million has 325 rooms, and its latest property from the Spanish-owned hotel operators, the Excellence Group. Javon Keys has more.
The Excellence Group opened its newest all-inclusive hotel in Oyster Bay, Trelawney this morning. Speaking at the opening, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he is pleased with the investment and he is certain that the investors have gotten value for money.
It is clear that for the $110 million spent on the property, you have gotten value and more. And I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing here with this 325-room property.
Prime Minister Holness says this is the latest iteration of the successful relationship between Jamaica and Spain, which has strengthened in the last decade with investments in excess of $1 billion in the tourism sector. He says Spanish investments account for about 25% of the available rooms in Jamaica.
Bilateral cooperation between Jamaica and Spain has strengthened significantly over the past decade, with Spain increasingly become a leading source of foreign direct investment in Jamaica. Spanish investment of $1.7 billion in Jamaica's tourism industry is evident in the hotel and wellness center construction projects undertaken by Spanish companies across the island. In terms of the tourism sector, about 25% of the rooms built in Jamaica are the product of Spanish investment.
He added that further discussions to strengthen the relationship between Spain and Jamaica began in May of this year with the signing of an MOU.
In May of this year, Jamaica and Spain engaged in productive discourse in Spain's capital, Madrid, to facilitate the strengthening of bilateral and multilateral relations to include areas of trade and investment, tourism, energy, agriculture, logistics, and education. In that meeting, we signed a memorandum of understanding on policy consultations to establish a system for regular meetings to strengthen cooperation between Spain and Jamaica.
The Senate has passed the long-awaited fisheries bill, which has been in consultation for some 2 decades. Jamila Maitland tells us more.
The bill, which took some 25 years of inspections, consultations and revisions, will repeal the 1975 Fisheries Act. Leader of Government Business Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, who piloted the bill, said the new legislation will not only protect the environment and the blue economy, but fisher folks as well.
How do we create greater sustainability in the industry? How do we ensure that our fishers are better educated, better prepared, that the ministry is better able to manage, and that the institutions being created are also able to not only obtain the relevant data, but to maintain and monitor the information necessary to grow and sustain the industries.
She explained that the bill seeks to standardize the industry to align with global standards and international regulations while addressing the growing aquaculture industry.
But aquaculture accounts for nearly 50% of the world's food fish. So much for us to do in that regard. The existing Fishing Industry Act doesn't specifically relate the aquaculture sector at all. So this bill is filling that gap in regards to aquaculture. The bill requires the authority to prepare and keep under review fishery management plans and aquaculture management plans for specific areas, zones, and buffer zones in order to promote the sustainable management of resources in these areas.
Senator Johnson-Smith said Jamaica loses some $10 million annually through illegal fishing. That is why the new laws will facilitate the appointment of observers in addition to the fishing inspectors in order to improve reporting on poaching.
Moving on now, Canada is now the largest country with a legal national marijuana marketplace after it legalized the possession and use of recreational cannabis. But will cannabis prove to be a lucrative cash crop, or will it come down to potluck? Take a look.
For more than a decade, this greenhouse was used for growing orchids. But last year, the company Up Cannabis took over. Now the facility just north of the Niagara Falls ships marijuana across Canada. In 2016, the Ontario-based firm became one of the country's first licensed medical marijuana producers. With recreational weed now legal in the country for people aged 18 and over, Up Cannabis's ambitions are getting higher.
So the main focus of the company right now is certainly on creating a very strong footprint here in Canada, which is the biggest legal market in the world.
The country's Cannabis Act fulfills a promise Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made in the 2015 campaign. It lifts 95 years of prohibition and makes Canada the second nation after Uruguay to legalize the drug.
By controlling and regulating the sale of cannabis, we can better protect our young people. The allies I spoke with are interested in seeing how things go, but I have a feeling they will wait to see how it goes in Canada before they try it themselves.
Weed may now be legal nationwide, but provinces are setting their own rules. In Ontario, people need to order online, while retail stores are now open in Newfoundland and Labrador. Customers there queued overnight to get into Tweed, which started selling at midnight.
I came out to be the first person in Canada to buy a legal gram of recreational cannabis.
The government says regulation will benefit the economy. It expects to make over $840 million a year by taxing tokers. According to Deloitte, marijuana sales could rise as high as $8.7 billion in the first year. That's equal to what Canadians spend on wine. Including growing and distribution, paraphernalia, and tourism, the research firm says the industry could be worth more than $22 billion a year. But the World Health Organization says these estimated economic benefits can act as a smokescreen to the real harm that marijuana use can cause.
I think any addictive, whether it's drug or substance, is not good for human health.
UN data suggests Canadians are already among the world's top marijuana users. According to the country's statistics office, 1 in 8 Canadians are estimated to have used the drug in some form last year, meaning many are feeling pretty dope. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
And here is how many Canadians across the country reacted.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. We did it. You did it, and your party is coming up. Here's your receipt. The first legal receipt issued in Canada.
I feel great. The stigma ends tonight. Prohibition has ended right now. We just made history.
Marijuana, cannabis, 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 cannabis.
Now that weed is legal, I don't have to feel the
legalization.
I don't know the word, but it's not a negative thing anymore, which it shouldn't be.
Well, my main goal was to be the first one buying recreational cannabis in Montreal.
And why?
It's a big moment for a stoner like me. Like it's like Christmas and New Year's and all in one day.
I don't believe Canada's ready to deal with this. I believe it's going to cost us taxpayers billions of dollars. I believe it is going to not help law enforcement. The laws in each province are not clear enough.
I just want to see what they have. I'm actually a medical user, so this will be a brand new experience for me. So I'm hoping to get maybe, 15 grams of some Snoop Dogg approved kush or something.
How did you choose your selection?
I went for one of everything. Literally, I got one of everything, so I'm pretty excited about it.
I think it's like a big deal. It's like a historical moment, right? It's like a crack in the puritanical ideals of the past.
I think there's a certain aroma in the air I've been noticing more of. I myself am one of those people that also have a few concerns, but not too wholeheartedly, and I think everything will be all right.
Been a long time coming, so I'm just here to do what I've done for such a long time and not have to worry about being prosecuted for it.
A year and a half ago, I, on behalf of our government, was pleased to introduce the Cannabis Act into the House of Commons, and today pleased to sit here and mark this historic day, and there is no question that the world is watching Canada.
We will be proposing another new law to make things fairer for Canadians who have been previously convicted of simple possession of cannabis. So today, I am announcing that the Government of Canada intends to present legislation which, when enacted, will allow these individuals to apply for a pardon as long as they have completed their sentence. There will be no further waiting period and no fee.
I've said many times that I'm not a drug user. I don't drink much alcohol. I don't drink coffee. I have no intention of using marijuana.
Well, I think when people start to see these consequences, they're going to blame Trudeau's failures for it. When we hear concerns about health experts and the access by young people who are still undergoing brain development, having now access to this to marijuana, we're going to start to see the pushback, the anger from Canadians who are concerned that the government has adopted this approach.
If an individual is coming to the United States, like I say, a Canadian is coming to the United States, and it has nothing to do with the marijuana industry or the proliferation of the industry, that person would generally be deemed admissible to the United States. If they're coming to the United States, a Canadian citizen with the express interest to facilitate or develop the marijuana industry, they would generally be deemed inadmissible. And we generally are not asking routine questions about people's, marijuana use.
It was an amazing experience. The store is so beautiful inside, absolutely stunning. I'm blown away. Now that I can purchase it legally, my money will go to the government instead of going somewhere else or for another nefarious purpose, right?
Company news comes up next, then later. Finding new ways to feed a growing population. Could vertical farming be the answer? More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
Access Financial Services says it has reached an agreement to acquire a Florida-based consumer finance company. However, the acquisition will not be finalized until all conditions of the purchase agreement and all applicable legal and regulatory approvals are given. The process is expected to be completed in 90 days. Access Financial says this acquisition is part of its thrust to expand operations, diversify its revenue stream, and create opportunities for all stakeholders while increasing shareholder value. The National Water Commission (NWC) is seeking a 23% increase in water rates and a 38% hike in sewage rates. They've submitted their tariff review application to the Office of Utilities Regulation (OUR). A statement from the OUR says the NWC has requested the increase for the 3-year period from 2019 to 2021. If approved, it would net the company an additional $34 billion. The water and sewer company is also proposing several changes to their rate structure. The Jamaica Public Service (JPS) is reporting more cases of electricity theft in upscale communities. The company says it's discovered theft at residences in Seacrest, St. Anne, Nampril in Westmoreland, and Coral Gardens, and Westgate Hills in St. James, while in the Corbett area illegal connections have been found in Barbican, Havendale, and Jacks Hill. The company says the perpetrators have been slapped with millions of dollars collectively in back billing, and JPS says that more sophisticated methods are being used to steal electricity, which it says is usually accompanied by great waste.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the week's top news stories, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. Roadwork along the Portia Simpson Miller Square is causing headaches for CAC 2000 Limited. Sashana Small explains.
Roadworks along the Portia Simpson Miller Square have been nothing short of a headache for businesses that operate here. They complain that they're losing revenue because customers cannot gain access to them. But imagine this, coming to work and not getting access to your own building. Take the CAC 2000 building, for example, which was blocked by roadworks recently.
We've been dealing with the slow and gradual encroachment of access to our premises, but things came to a head yesterday when we came and discovered that we were not able to gain access to the premises by any means whatsoever. So, as you can see, the car park now is totally empty. There is a blue zinc wall blocking 2/3 of our entrance, so we are at a standstill insofar as access to our premises is concerned.
Mr. Roberts says the blocking of the building's entrance is evidence of the poor planning and lack of communication from the National Works Agency and CHEC.
We understand that this is a very important national work or national job in the national interest, but that doesn't mean that it must come at the expense of our access to our business. And certainly, things like communication and planning could be done better. Had we gotten the alternate gateway cut and an alternate entrance made to our premises, we wouldn't have been protesting this much.
He says employees have to park their vehicles elsewhere and walk to the office, and this has affected productivity.
People will work with dislocations if they're informed and a plan is laid out and a schedule of what will happen is laid out. If nothing happens and it just occurs happenstance or on an ad hoc basis, people become very demotivated. And our team doesn't know whether or not they're going to be given access to CAC today or tomorrow, or if they're going to gain access to Dr. Glass today or tomorrow, etc.
Jamaica has met all and exceeded some of the targets under the latest IMF precautionary standby arrangement review. Javon Keys covered this week's Epoch Quarterly Press Briefing.
Co-chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Keith Duncan, said Jamaica has met all the fourth review targets under the IMF precautionary standby arrangement.
We are pleased to say, except for the inflation target, which came in below the program range at 2.8%, the program range being 3.5 to 6.5%, all quantitative and indicative performance criteria were met up to June 2018.
He noted that tax revenues and non-board reserves and other indicators exceeded their initial targets.
The primary surplus target was set at 18 billion. The outturn was actually 31.3 billion. Tax revenues were set to perform at 110 billion. They came in at 128.7 billion, significantly outperforming the program targets. Non-board reserves were at 2.484 billion, significantly ahead of the 2.075 billion target as at June 2018.
Mr. Duncan also pointed out that based on the statistics produced as at the end of August, primary surplus was $42.1 billion. He said this meant that Jamaica is on track to meet and possibly exceed the $44 billion indicative target set for September. Meanwhile, inflation at the end of August moved up from the 2.8% recorded at the end of June, now falling within the 3.5 to 6.5% range stipulated under the program.
Inflation at the end of August came in at 3.9%, within the program range of 3.5 to 6.5%. So inflation has moved back into the program range.
In the meantime, with the IMF program set to end in December 2019, the EPOC co-chair said Jamaica is on track to meet the end targets of GDP at 1.9% growth, debt to GDP of 93.7%, a primary surplus maintained at 7%, and net international reserves of US $3.83 billion. The next review will be done by the IMF's executive board on November 5th, and Mr. Duncan said EPOC is expecting favorable results.
Meanwhile, the latest figures from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin showed that inflation for September was 1.1%. More in this report. Statin says the upward movement in September's consumer price index was influenced by a 4.6% increase in the housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels division. This jump was due to increased electricity, water, and sewage rates. As a result, the electricity, gas, and other fuels group moved up by 7.6%, while the group water supply and miscellaneous services related to dwelling advanced by 3.1%. Meanwhile, the food and non-alcoholic beverages division increased by 0.9%. This was primarily due to higher prices for agricultural produce. The group vegetables and starchy foods increased by 2.1%, while the transport division increased by 0.3% as a result of an increase in the price of fuel. In the meantime, calendar year-to-date inflation stood at 2.8%, while fiscal year-to-date inflation was 3%, and the point-to-point movement was 4.3%. A breakdown of the three regions for the month of September all showed increases. Inflation in the Greater Kingston metropolitan area went up 1.2%, other urban center increased by 1.1%, and rural areas jumped by 1%. When we come back, no sun, no field, scarce water? No problem. We'll show you farming of the future. Wherever we are after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. World hunger is on the rise, and the UN Agency for Food and Agriculture says the way the world produces food will need to change if we hope to continue feeding the growing global population. Here's more.
There's no tractor or trailer or reliance on the sun or the rain. Instead, special lighting is helping this crop of basil and dill to grow. This is the UK's first fully automated vertical farm. where the vents built into the trays pump the right amount of air to regulate the temperature and humidity.
We've taken a field, we've cut it into tray-sized pieces about 6.5 square metres, and as you can see behind me, we've stacked them up on top of each other. Then we've put them in a box, and we've made the weather inside the box. So we've made our own sunshine, we've made our own rain, we've made our own wind, we can heat, we can cool, we can deal with humidity.
Under this system being developed in Scotland, crops can grow quickly using 97% less water than normally would be used. This method of farming isn't being seen as a replacement for more traditional methods of agriculture, but it could be useful in areas where it's difficult to grow crops and where the climate is extreme. And changing the way we produce food will be vital in the future. The UN is warning that by 2050, the global population will be more than 9 billion and will need to produce 70% more food to feed everyone.
This technology allows us to grow food in areas of the world where it's very difficult because of the climate, or in areas of the world where there's actually very little land available. So it changes the whole food system supply chain, for example, but also seriously reduces the amount of energy and inputs that we have to put into making food.
Here, they're aiming to be energy neutral. As the demands of our population increase, so too will our need for innovation. Emma Hayward, Al Jazeera, in Invergary in Scotland.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.